County Fair 2022 Sheep Show. We will be starting with Ffa Sheep Showmanship, Autumn Postain, Amy Peldo, and Lily Hancock. Ready? We would like to take a minute and welcome our judge today. He is Bieselmeyer from Amherst, Colorado. He grew up on a seastock Angus operation showing cattle and pigs nationwide. He attended Butler Community College, where he was on the 2019 Junior Collegiate Team of the Year, then transferred to K-State, where he was part of the 2020 National Champion Livestock Judging Team. He graduated with a bachelor's in animal science and currently works for Hubbard Feeds as an account manager covering the state of Colorado. Please help me in welcoming Austin. Following Ffa Sheep Showmanship, we will have Intermediate Sheep Showmen, Natalie Brown, Grace Van Dyke, Finn Stolick, Avery Bowling, Harper Baltz, Danny Koltiska, and Ella Hiller.
think a really competitive trio of showmen out here for Ffa Showmanship. I think all three are really good in terms of getting their sheep set up and presented the best of their ability. I think they know how to work with the sheep incredibly well. You can tell they've all done their homework at home. There's just a few little things that it really comes down to in terms of intensity, maybe just a little bit of differences in terms of showing style, how they present that lamb. There are some things that I would like to see better in terms of all of them, in terms of speediness at which they get those lambs set up, and maybe one of those things is what kind of separates the top two. But I think there's one that this young lady is just really, really intense. I think once she gets that lamb parked and set up, it really doesn't move on her at all. It was braced just right when I came to a handle. I think that young lady is very, very knowledgeable about the feeding program and things that she likes and would like to change about that lamb as well. I think there's one that, yes, like I said, she does need to be just a little bit quicker to get that thing set up and parked, and maybe that's just kind of pulling forward another half a step and then just get to bracing and see if that youth grows those back two legs back just a little bit farther. But I think the one that just kind of hits more my showing style, one that I appreciate from a little bit more of an intensity standpoint, is going to be the young lady on my far left. She'll be your champion. Like I said, I think it was really close between two. There was a few times this lamb just kind of got a little bit out of whack for us, kind of wanted to jump around on us a little bit more, and really wanted to fidget around there when I came up to handle a young lady with the dark fiber, whether it's going to be reserved. Nothing to take away from the young lady coming third. Just want to see it be just a little bit more intense, just a little bit lower in terms of showing style and really putting the heat into that sheep, but a really, really competitive trio to start the day with.
Your champion, Ffa Sheep Showman, goes to Lily Hancock. Reserved to Amy Peldo. Third, Autumn Postine. Entering the ring will be intermediate Sheep Showman, Natalie Brown, Grace Van Dyke, Ben Stolick, Avery Bowling, Harper Maltz, Danny Koltiska, and Ella Hiller. Would like to remind everybody that Shared Media is live streaming all of our events this week, so if somebody's at home and would like to watch, go to Shared Media and click on the live streaming and watch any of our shows. Natalie Brown to the show ring, please. Natalie Brown. Junior Sheep Showman, please make your way to the holding area. Aubrey Welter, AC Stolick, Shay Baltz, London Mempher, Amelia Zumberg, Ty Watkins, Harper Hancock, Tyson Zumberg, Wayne West, Claire Broadbent, and Catherine Swinier.
Like when they were coming out of the ring last time.
Yeah, I'm just staying on the group and then I'll zoom in on the noise. Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
There's definitely just a lot of talent out here. You can tell these people have gotten their lambs trained. Most of them are pretty automatic for the most part. All they have to do is just shove a knee into their chest, and then they set up and they're braced and good to go. It does come down to just little nitpicky details, being fine-tuned, incredibly smooth. In terms of the showmen themselves, the sheep are pretty good from that standpoint, so we're not really sorting these for in terms of how well their sheep are doing for them. It's just little things like getting out of line. Maybe we're having to work just a little bit harder in terms of getting that sheep pulled up. But there's some young people out here that are just incredibly intense, really knowledgeable in terms of their feeding program, why they're feeding, what they are, and then definitely some things they'd like to change about the lambs, and I think all of them were very accurate from that regard. But there's one that just kind of hit me with a little bit harder first impression today. One that's just, I haven't really ever caught her doing anything wrong with this sheep. One that's just really flawless in general. Young lady third in line is going to be your champion today. From there it gets really close. I think there's, you could bring these three back any day, or we could bring them back an hour from now, and it would probably shake it up how we're going to place them. But I think one that's been just a little bit more intense, always making sure that sheep is looking the part, always kind of adjusting the belly every time that sheep moves. We're always making sure that it's working 12 o'clock. One that I think has just been right there in terms of intensity. I really appreciate from the showing style. Young lady in blue is going to be reserved. I think the next one that's been just a little, that's had a few less problems pop up, one that's kind of just stayed a little bit straighter in terms of line, been just a little bit more on target in terms of getting that sheep set up right away, and doesn't hardly ever have to adjust that weather. Young man out front will be third, one that hung in right there, very intensity and smoothness and then polish as well. Nothing to take away from the young lady coming forward. I think you got that sheep trained. You're one of the few that when you pull that sheep up, all you have to do is shove a knee into it, and then that guy sets up perfect how we need him to be. But he's just kind of wanting to just get out of whack in terms of being straight in line. So we're having to fidget with him a little bit more. To just take that sheep and circle him out and try and pull him straight back into line. Very intense, very polished from that aspect as well. Congratulations to you. I think we went ahead and pulled the young lady in the blue next, and I didn't mention anything to her, but I think one that's right there in terms of intensity, something that I do want to see you change is I want you to get out in front of that sheep just a little bit more in terms of my preferred style. I like a sheep and a goat showman to be just right in front. That way they don't interrupt the silhouette and interrupt how that sheep appears in the profile. It just makes you seem a little bit more poised, a little bit more professional, being just a little bit neater and tidier in terms of your stance, and being able to put a little better brace on that sheep at times too. But congratulations to these three as well. They've done an awesome job. Just got stuck in a really tough meeting.
Your champion intermediate market sheep showman goes to Ella Hiller, reserved to Harper Holtz, third Finn Stolick, fourth Natalie Brown, fifth Danny Koltiska, and sixth Grace Van Dyke. Entering the ring is Junior Sheep Showmanship, Aubrey Welter, AC Stolick, Shay Balks, London Mefford, Amelia Zumberg, Ty Watkins, Harper Hancock, Tyson Zumberg, Wayne West, Claire Broadbent, and Catherine Swinier. Following the selection of our juniors, we will have Senior Sheep Showmanship, Will Edwards, Lily Hancock, Maisie Thomas, Lexi McKinley, Melanie Brown, and Broden Buchanan. after seniors, we will do a Kiwi Showmanship. So if you are not of age to show and would like to show a sheep, please ask one of the older members if you can borrow their lamb and show in the Kiwi Showmanship. somebody's breeding sheep was on the loose and they caught it and put it in a pen right back here. So if you have breeding sheep, now would be a good time to go look and make sure that they're in your pen.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and release the rest of these from the ring. It's going to take just a few more minutes to sort through these over here, but went through and gave them little pointers, things they were doing nice, but things that we needed to see change in order to be just a little bit more competitive and to stay out here. So let's give them a big round of applause as they head out the ring. Well, it seems to be a pretty common trend that we get into the junior division, and it probably gets a little tougher than the rest of the age divisions that we've seen so far in the last day and a half. I think these junior exhibitors are just incredibly good. This is going to be a really, really fun group for y'all to watch compete against each other and for them to grow and get even better on down the line. There's a world of talent in all these, but it really, when we get to this level of showmanship, when we get to young people that are just this good, it is the little fine-tuned details, being just a little bit more polished. Did that sheep move around on you a little bit more? Are our feet just a little bit out of whack? Are they not quite perfect all the time? Maybe we're out of line just a little bit, and maybe we're having to kind of fidget ourselves just a little bit more. That kind of separates a few of them out. I think the one that's going to kind of just round off the top five that's been really, really good, really intense, gets that sheep set up pretty good for the most part. This is probably the best that the sheep has been set up. There's a few times that I've kind of caught him with the legs just a little bit more under that sheep. Maybe we had to ask the exhibitor to move forward in line instead of just kind of seeing and knowing that we should pull up automatically. The young man in front of me is going to round off the top 5 today. Congrats to you. I think there's another one that kind of like him, maybe we aren't just quite as polished as some of the others. Maybe our feet are getting just out of whack ever so slightly. Maybe we fidget around just a little bit more as a showman. Maybe that sheep wants to fight us just a little bit more than the other 3. A young lady that I think has been intense, but I would like to see her movements and everything smoothed up just a little bit more and make sure those legs are always just perfectly square. Young lady in the blue is going to round off at number 4.
Go back to the sheep.
So now we get down to the top 3. I think any exhibitor around here, if they want to learn how to show sheep or learn how to do things just a little bit better than what they currently are, I think all 3 of these young ladies provide just excellent examples of really, really competitive showmanship. All their lambs are just really, really automatic. All they have to pretty much do is walk them into place, put a knee up, and then that lamb is braced and set up pretty much perfect. There's one that maybe has had to move around just a little bit. And what's kind of caught you right now is we pulled out 2 exhibitors and we didn't move up, but we fixed that for next time, and we could come back an hour from now and we could definitely have a chance at winning this thing. Young lady in the black is going to go ahead and round off the 3rd. And so now we're at these 2. I think 2 that are very, very similar in terms of showing style. I think these 2 are very, very intense. Probably the most intense of any of the exhibitors that have come in the ring. And you can definitely see it in their eyes. They've both got that I want to win it attitude. They're going to do anything out here to be able to win it. There's one that's just a little bit more fine-tuned, just a little bit more polished. She doesn't make any unnecessary movements, and when she does move around or change something with that lamb, it's for a purpose. And that lamb has definitely had hours and hours of being braced and trained. The one that's kind of just really, really hit me with a really good first impression. One that I really can't pick on at all in terms of doing anything wrong. Young lady in the red is going to be your champion today. Young lady in the yellow, there's a couple times, like right now, legs could be pushed back just a little bit more. We kind of did swing up and get just a little bit farther out to the center of the ring to start with. And so just make sure that we've got a little bit better ring awareness and where exactly to pull into. We could definitely stay a little closer to the fence and keep the line a little straighter going. But really, really good. If that sheep didn't move on you quite as much, I think you definitely have a chance of winning this thing. Just right there in terms of your showmanship ability as well.
Your champion junior sheep showman goes to Win West. Reserve AC Stolick. 3rd, Harper Hancock. 4th, Aubrey Welter. 5th, Ty Watkins. And 6th, Catherine Swinier. Entering the ring will be senior sheep showman Will Edwards, Lily Hancock, Maisie Thomas, Lexi McKinley, Melanie Brown, and Brode Buchanan. Following the selection of our senior sheep showman, we will do a Kiwi Showmanship. So if you are not of the age and would like to show a sheep, please ask one of the older members if you can show them.
good talent and ability in these three showmen. We'll kind of go top to bottom, a little bit different than we have been, but I think there's one out here that just kind of really separates themselves apart. One that's just a little bit more flawless in terms of movement. Maybe one that we could see that lamb set up just a little bit quicker. There's a couple times where the back legs were just a little bit underneath that sheep that I'd like to see pushed back just a little bit farther to truly make that sheep look its best. But a young lady that I think has just been really, really polished. One that's very, very intense and always doesn't seem to do anything wrong out here. Young lady up front will be your champion senior. From there it gets a little bit closer, but I think there's one that's just been a little bit better in terms of always making sure that sheep is properly set up. I think this young person's just a little bit better in terms of knowing when to stay bracing and then when to kind of step away from that sheep and give me the full chest view. Young man is going to go ahead and be second today. I think there were a couple times where we were letting that sheep kind of get just a little bit closer to the fence and a little bit out of line. So that's just a little nitpicky thing that'll kind of help you get just a little bit more polished as well. Young lady coming up third, I think one that's still very, very intense. I did appreciate when I pulled another out that you moved on up to the front, and so that's what kind of kept you in here is just knowing a little bit better ring management, ring awareness than some. But there were a couple times where we were just a little quick to kind of step off, a quick brace in that sheep and give me the full chest view. Went just a little bit more, kind of like a front 3/4 and keep going, and it took almost until I was about right here on the sheep in relation to you for you to get back up front and start bracing a little bit more. There's a couple times I'd probably like to see you just a little bit more directly in front of that sheep, not quite as much off to the side, and we just get that sheep perfectly set every time. Back legs aren't perfectly square right now, but just little details for you to work on and help yourself be that much more competitive for next time. Young lady in the blue that's going to come up next, I think really intense. I appreciate your poise and your posture and professionalism out here, but we do kind of need to make sure that sheep is set up just a little bit better at times. The legs were just a little bit out of whack. When I pulled one or two exhibitors, we kind of left a really large gap between you and that sheep all the way up front. And I just want to see you move up and fill that gap. Just keep ring awareness in mind at times. So kind of the same. We were just a little bit quick to step off that sheep and give me the chest view of it. I want to see you stay bracing a little bit longer and then return back to bracing a little bit quicker as I kind of circle back around to more of a side view. Then the next two that are going to round off this heat, I think two that are really calm. They don't really make a whole lot of unintentional movements, which is awesome, but we're maybe not just as intense as the others. Maybe we're not just as aware of how the legs are set all the time. I just want you to keep poking down there, making sure those legs are set as good as they can possibly be, and then maybe just put a little harder brace on those things when I come up to handle. The little details to work on, I think, are very competitive heat seniors.
Your champion senior sheep showman goes to Lily Hancock. Reserve to Broden Buchanan. Third, Melanie Brown. Fourth, Lexi McKinley. And fifth, Maisie Thomas. Entering the ring will be our Kiwi Sheep Showman. Immediately following Kiwi Sheep Showmanship, we will start with our Market Lamb feeder class. We have Amy Pelbo and Lexi McKinley.
sheep?
No.
Oh, do you know the sheep's name?
No.
It's alright. How old are you?
6.
Yeah, you gonna show sheep in 2 years?
I don't know.
Do you have any older siblings out here?
No.
Maybe you can be the first one in there. Are you having fun at least?
Yeah.
Yeah, good deal. That's what I like to hear. How are you doing? What's your name?
Thomas.
Thomas, nice to meet you. What's your sheep's name?
Max.
May. Did you come up with that?
No.
No, that's alright. That's a cool name. How old are you?
8.
8. So you gonna show sheep next year?
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. You're gonna do market or breeding? Do you want to keep the sheep or do you want to keep the sheep later? There we go. I like it. How are you doing, buddy? Good. What's your name? Nice to meet you. What's your sheep's name?
It's not my sheep.
That's alright. How old are you?
1.5.
4.5. You might be one of the youngest ones out here. We'll see if there's anybody else younger. You have any older siblings out here? Older brother, sister?
No.
That's alright. You gonna show sheep someday? We're still thinking about it. Alright. Keep up the good work, buddy. What's your name? Nice to meet you. What's your sheep's name? Sunny. Awesome. Do you have any older brothers or sisters out here?
I have a sister. Yeah.
Awesome. She's standing behind you? Nice. Glad she's out here helping. How old are you? 7. Are you sure about that? 4. There we go. Are you 4 or are you 4.5? 4? Oh, you might be the youngest one then. You gonna show sheep someday? Yeah, nice. How are you doing?
Good.
Good. What's your name?
Finley.
Winley. Nice to meet you. What's your sheep's name?
Piggy Sparkles.
Piggy Sparkles. How'd you come up with that? You like sparkles? Yeah. How old are you?
5.
5. Awesome. You have any older brothers or sisters out here? Yeah. Awesome. You gonna show sheep someday? Market or breeding? Yeah, we'll do both. Awesome. Nice job. How are you doing? Good. What's your name?
Cadence.
Cadence. What's your sheep's name?
Linda. Linda.
Linda. How'd you come up with Linda? Get it? That's alright. That's a cool one. How old are you?
7.
7. So we're going to show sheep next year in 2 years. Next year? Awesome. You're going to show breeding sheep or market? Whatever older sister points you to, right? You at least having fun? How are you doing, buddy? Good. What's your name? Nice to meet you. What's your sheep's name?
Mimi.
Awesome. Did you name her?
Me.
How old are you? 3? Oh, you get the award for being the youngest out here then. Awesome. You gonna show sheep in like 5 years? Yeah, looking forward to it. We got a lot of time to plan ahead, don't we? Awesome. Keep up the good work, buddy. I think another fun group. There's a couple kids that already look like they really know what they're doing out here, so be a really fun set of juniors in a couple years. Let's give them another round of applause as they leave.
Congratulations to all of our Kiwi Showmen, and the future of our Sheridan County Sheep Show looks bright. Entering the ring will be our class of feeder lambs with Amy Peldo and Lexi McKinley. Following the selection of our feeder lamb, we will have our white-faced market lamb class 1, AC Stolick and Shea Baltz.
Top corner. There's only one thing about faces. Yep. Oh. Oh, they're in the middle. Let's see. Yes. And then the next one will be Disney Champion and Reserve Champion White Face because they're only two. Sorry. Thank you.
feeder lambs. Both, I think, definitely probably offer the potential in terms of frame and growth to get to an optimal market weight. Maybe just didn't have quite as many days on feed, or maybe not quite pushed hard enough. But I think the one that offers just a few more unique pieces in terms of build, a little extra stoutness and structure, one that's just a little bit more attractive is the young lady's dark fiber weather up front. I think the shape, when you get on top of him, is one that still reads very round in terms of his rib cage. The sheep still offers plenty of shape up high, and definitely comes with a notch more power and product to its twist and lower leg as well. Young lady's weather that's going to come up second, I think a sheep that's still very dimensional in terms of center body, still bold in terms of center rib cage, and one that definitely doesn't fall too short in terms of power up high. It's just more of a build and a balance standpoint and how that sheep pieces together from the profile. I definitely like to see the sheep just a little bit better in the angle of his shoulder, the build and set to his hip and hind leg to give that sheep just a little bit more attractive pieces on the profile.
Your champion feeder lamb goes to Amy Peldo, reserved to Lexi McKinley. Entering the ring will be our single class of white-faced market lambs with AC Stolick and Shea Baltz. Lambs in this class range from 111 to 124 pounds. Following the selection of this, we will start into our speckled face, class 1, Ella Hiller.
type and kind. But it's the young ladies' weather up front that offers just a little bit more attractiveness from a profile and a balance standpoint. One that's just a little bit better in terms of the build to his hip and hind leg. A sheep that I think is actually just a notch more expressive in terms of muscle shape. Just a little bit harder to the touch over rack and loin, even though that sheep is pretty loose-heighted. I definitely would like to see that change. Then the young lady's weather that's going to come up in second, I think one that's definitely got a lot of shag and leg wool. Maybe not quite as presented as well as the class winner, but a sheep that doesn't slack in terms of stoutness of feature. A sheep that's still good in terms of center body, but one that's just a little bit too soft to the touch. And even though these sheep aren't quite as muscled up and going to be as hard to the touch as some others, given their breed type, I still think that sheep is pushing a little bit more fat cover and would definitely like to see that one leaned up just a little bit more in hopes of getting the pair switched.
Your champion Whiteface goes to AC Stolick, reserved to Shea Baltz. Entering the ring will be Class 1 Speckleface. Ella Hiller will be a single entry in Class 1. Her lamb weighs 119 pounds. Following that, we'll have Class 2 of Speckleface. Ben Stolick, Benjamin Willett,
The young lady brings us a really nice single entry spec. I think a sheep that I really appreciate from a power and a carcass standpoint. One that's very hard to the touch and expressive in terms of rack and loin. A sheep that still has a lot of power and product down into his twist and lower leg. Maybe one that I would like to see just a notch more square and level out of his hip and duck. One that could be just a little bit wider in terms of pin set, but I think a sheep that's still really good from a fundamental standpoint in terms of carcass merits, and one that's still got some good skeletal width.
Results from Class 1. First, Ella Hiller. Entering the ring will be Speckleface Market Land Class number 2, Ben Stolick and Benjamin Wilhite. Lambs in this class range from 128 to 137 pounds. Following this class, we'll have Speckleface Market Land Class 3, Harper Baltz.
sheep that brings a lot of good together in terms of balance and attractiveness on the profile. One that's still fairly heavy structured at the ground and offers a lot of soundness. Put your hands on both the sheep, and I think both are actually fairly similar in terms of mass of muscle up top. This one does come with just a little extra expressiveness to rack and loin edge, and a sheep that's maybe just a little bit better in terms of coverage over his forerib, but I think a sheep that's just a really nice place to start. A young man sheep that's going to round off second, I think one that I do actually like from a carcass and a product standpoint. The sheep doesn't fall out in terms of muscle in this class, and it's more so from a balance and a build standpoint. A sheep that just doesn't piece together quite as well as our class winner. One that's just a little longer dogged and not quite as attractive in the build of his hip and hind leg, but one I do appreciate from a muscle standpoint. So good job to this young man on getting him fed.
Results from Class 2. First, Ben Stalick. Second, Benjamin Wilhite. Entering the ring will be Speckled-Faced Market Lamb Class 3, Harper Baltz. Following the selection of this class, we will have Speckled-Faced Market Lamb Class 4, Brooke Buchanan and Shay Baltz.
Well, the young lady brings us a really nice single entry, one that I definitely like from a whip and skeleton standpoint. I think the sheep's got a lot of power and a lot of product, tremendous width in terms of rack and loin, and carries his muscle shape really, really deep into that twist. Maybe one that's just a little bit looser hided, maybe just a little bit softer to the touch to bring it down into that forerib. I'd probably like to see this sheep leaned up just a pinch. I'd like to see her hook up stronger between her loin and her hip junction, just to make that shape a little bit more attractive in terms of balance on the profile.
Results from Speckled-Faced Market Lamb Class number 3. First, Harper Baltz. Entering the ring is Speckled-Faced Market Lamb Class 4, Brooke Buchanan and Shay Baltz. Following this class, we will pick the overall champion Speckled Face. So we need Ella Hiller from Class 1, Finn Stalick from Class 2, Harper Baltz from Class 3, and Benjamin Wilhite, please be on standby with your second from Class 2.
We'll go ahead and lead off the class with the young man's weather up front. I think one that puts together a lot of quality on the profile. That sheep is really stout in terms of foot and bone. One that I'm really, really impressed with in terms of carcass merit, in terms of expressiveness. When I get my hands on him, that sheep is really hard to the touch and very, very smooth in terms of how he transitions from his rack to his loin. That sheep is still very flexible in motion. Where I will pick on this sheep sheep is I do think he gets just a little bit more closed up in terms of chest floor, and that's, I think, an advantage that the second place sheep definitely has. It's just a little bit more shoulder width underneath, and a sheep that's definitely doesn't lack too much in terms of total power. The sheep just kind of falls out from a build and a balance standpoint, one that just really doesn't have the same substance of foot and bone at the ground, just a little bit rounder in terms of the build to his hip as well. We fixed those things, and I think the pair definitely gets closer.
Results from Speckle-Faced Marketland Class number 4. First, Brooke Buchanan. Second, Shay Baltz. We will now choose an overall champion Speckle-Face. From Class number 1, Ella Hiller. From Class 2, Finn Stolick. Class 3, Harper Baltz. And Class 4, Brooke Buchanan. From Class 2, Benjamin Wilhite, please be ready. And from Class 4, Shay Baltz, please be ready.
Kind of run through the speckled class winners quick. Young lady single entry out of that first class. I think a sheep that I really like from a carcass standpoint. Massive in terms of rack and loin shape. Sheep that's maybe a little bit flatter in terms of its forerib, in terms of center body. And a sheep that I would like to see just a little bit more attractive in terms of the build to his hip and hind leg, or maybe just we clip the legs in a little bit more to where they kind of fit that sheep a little bit better as well. Young man's weather out of that second class, I think one that just balances really nicely. I think a sheep that's just adequate in terms of foot and bone, one that you get in front of him and get behind him, and I think there's some natural skill to width to that sheep, and one that's definitely impressive to the touch. Very fresh, tight-heighted, one that's very expressive as well. Now, young ladies, you out of the third class, one that isn't shy in terms of power, but maybe just doesn't bring as much expressiveness and shapeliness to that loin edge. Just pushing a little bit too much cover today. Definitely want to see that sheep just a little bit leaner. Then the young man's weather out of the last class. I think a sheep that's got some unique pieces in terms of design on the profile. Maybe he doesn't just wedge perfectly in terms of lower body balance. I probably would like to see that sheep just tucked up into his breastplate ever so slightly and see his flank drop maybe just a little bit more, but I think more so we fix the breastplate issue, it gets that much better. But I think a sheep that is that is incredibly good down his top line, very, very square in terms of hip and hind leg. And when we get him set just a little bit better than what he is, I think his hind leg is very, very attractive and he still uses it really good. But where this sheep is just a little bit more impressive than the others is in terms of handling quality, just in terms of how much width he offers over rack and loin, still being that hard and that fresh to the touch for being just a little bit heavier weight of a sheep is certainly something that I like quite a bit. That's going to go ahead and be your champion division today.
Your champion speckled face goes to Broden Buchanan. We'll need Shea Ball second place from class 4 back in the ring, please.
That's the white face. Pink is purple.
Blackface, Market Land, class number 1. Please make your way to the holding area. Grace Van Dyke, Amy Peldo, Finn Stolick, Danny Foltiska, and Autumn Posteen.
Lady brings that second place weather back in, and I think one that's just a nice representation from a carcass merit standpoint. A sheep that's got enough product and is still decent to the touch, maybe doesn't offer the extras in terms of attractiveness and feature and balance from the profile. I think the one that just most closely fits the type and kind of our champion, and one that's got just a little bit more attractive look, one that's maybe even just a little bit better in terms of lower body balance, is going to be that young man's weather out of the second class.
Your reserve champion speckled face is Finn Stolick. Entering the ring is Blackface Market Land, class number 1. Grace Van Dyke, Amy Peldo, Finn Stolick, Danny Koltiska, and Anna Posteen. Lambs in this class range from 113 to 120 pounds. Blackface Market Land Class 2. Please make your way to the holding area. Paige Walden, Grace Van Dyke, Aubrey Welter, Ty Watkins, and AC Stolick.
the young man's weather, I think, wins the class fairly handily for me. That's a sheep that's pretty hard to poke just a major hole in. That's one that's really, really good from a balance and attractiveness standpoint. That sheep is still square and robust underneath, and one that's really, really impressive from a handling standpoint. Just incredibly smooth all the way back, and definitely expressive and fresh to the touch as well. A very, very nice place to start there. Young lady's weather up front, I think one that's still really good from a handling standpoint. Still a sheep that's got plenty of expressiveness, width of rack and loin. One that maybe doesn't hook up and transition quite as smooth from rack to loin. But this is also a sheep that's just not quite as attractive in terms of the build to his hip and hind leg. He's got just a little bit more set to that hop. It doesn't really affect functionality, but it's more of an aesthetically pleasing deal. I would like to see the sheep tucked up just a little bit better in terms of chest floor as well, but one that I still appreciate from a handling standpoint. The young lady started fiber view, I think one that probably touches as firm and as expressive as any in here. Young lady start fiber view that comes next. I think one that's as impressive as any probably from an expressiveness and freshness standpoint in terms of muscle shape up high. But kind of typical with a real dark fiber view is we just kind of want a little bit more back cover. We just want to kind of smooth in that transition from loin to dock. One that I would like to see just a little bit more total dimension of center body as well. But definitely has some pros from an expressiveness and legal standpoint. Next we get into two sheep that are pretty similar in terms of their type and kind. I think both could use some changes in terms of stoutness of feature, built to hip and hind leg, but I think the one that kind of edges out the other ewe in terms of just a little bit more power, a little bit more width of skeleton is the young ladies up front. I think the sheep dog hat comes with just a little bit more width of pin set. Definitely like that one more from a handling standpoint. Now the young ladies ewe that's going to round off the class, I think that one still has plenty of length aside and isn't really shy in terms of total product. Maybe it's just a little bit plainer in terms of the build to hip and hind leg. We stouten that one up at the ground, and we can definitely change some things in the class.
Results from Blackface Market Lamb class number 2. Class number 1, sorry. Class 1, Van Stolick. Second, Amy Paldo. Third, Danny Koltiska. Fourth, Grace Van Dyke. And fifth, Autumn Costine. Entering the ring is Blackface Market Lamb class number 2. Paige Walden, Grace Van Dyke, Aubrey Welter, Ty Watkins, and AC Stolick. Blackface Market Lamb class 3. Please make your way to the holding area. Avery Bowling, Danielle Koltiska, Catherine Swinier, Joshua Rainey, Will Edwards, and Lily Hancock.
This guy must have done a little bit of mutton busting. He's pretty good at hanging on to their sheep. I think a top trio of sheep that are really good in this class. Not all of them are just kind of the real complete and perfect solution in here, but I think the one that just brings the most quality and the most advantages to the table is the young lady's feather up front. That's one that just really like from a balance standpoint. That sheep's progression of lower body is really good. Maybe pushing a little bit too much center body depth that maybe don't need to see quite that much, but a sheep that's really good from a balance standpoint nonetheless. I think the sheep is still nice in terms of muscle shape. One that I might like to see just a little bit leaner in terms of back cover. The sheep is just a pinch soft to the touch, but that's one that's still really impressive from a total product standpoint in terms of skeletal width and especially flexibility and motion. Now the young man's weather is one that I really like, probably the most of the top three from a carcass merit standpoint. The sheep is very lean, very expressive, definitely harder to the touch and a little bit fresher in terms of loin edge and rack shape, but a sheep that's maybe just not quite there in terms of presentation, maybe a sheep that's just not quite there in terms of balance pieces. That sheep's just a little bit straighter in the angle of his blade, so he's dropped out a little bit more in his breastplate, maybe doesn't hook up the smoothest from loin to hip, but I think we get that guy's legs shaved in pretty smooth, and he just offers a little bit higher quality first impression, but one that I do like from a leanness and expression standpoint. Young lady's weather coming third. I think one that probably fits the most with the class winner in terms of the silhouette that they paint from the profile, but that's a sheep that is just a little bit softer to the touch. That is a sheep that is just a little bit rounder in terms of his dock and his hip. One that I do want to see powered up just a little bit when we get in right behind. And one that's just a little bit more dropped out in terms of breastplate, but a sheep that I still like in terms of balance and profile. Young lady's weather coming next. I think what keeps the sheep off the bottom is just a little extra total power. The sheep definitely has some power and product running over his rack and his loin, but maybe just a little bit plainer in terms of general build and look, a little bit rounder out of his hip, just not quite the extras in terms of foot, bone, and leg shag as well. Then the young lady's weather that's going to round off the class. I think one that's good from a leanness and an expression standpoint. The sheep is actually pretty smooth and pretty hard to the touch over rack and loin. Just kind of fall out in terms of natural skeletal width, stoutness at the ground. Give this guy just a little bit more center body dimension. I think we move up the class.
Results from Blackface Market class number 2. First, AC Stolick. Second, Ty Watkins. Third, Aubrey Welter. Fourth, Grace Van Dyke. And fifth, Paige Walden. Entering the ring is Blackface Market class number 3. Avery Bowling, Danny Fortiska, Catherine Swinier, Joshua Rainey, Will Edwards, and Lily Hancock. Blackface Market Lamb class number 4. Please make your way to the holding area. Claire Broadbent, Paige Walden, Ian Petzold, Wynn West, Claire Broadbent, Warren Sellen, Avery Bowling. Again, if you have somebody at home that would like to watch today's events, they are being live streamed by Shared Media. We would like to thank the Shared Media streaming sponsors: Life Safety Solutions of Sheridan, Range, Wolf Creek Cattle Company, Kissling Law, Sunlight Federal Credit Union, Little Goose Ranch, Tom Balding, Bits and Spurs, 307 Real Estate, Buffalo, Wyoming Corporate Office, First Federal Bank and Trust, Farm Bureau Insurance, Dave Kraft, Hart J. Livestock, True Built Builders, and Century 21.
I think a nice top pair lambs to start off the class. The young lady's ewe out back is one that's just a little bit more unique in terms of the look and build. That sheep is really good in terms of lower body balance and how everything fits together. I think that sheep can get on top, and she's incredibly powerful, really fresh to the touch, and really hard in terms of rack and loin. And that sheep pretty easily carries the most shape down into lower leg and stifle. That one's still really flexible in motion like that sheep in a lot of ways. Young lady's wether up front that's going to be second. I think that's a sheep that still balances really nice on the profile. That's a sheep that I probably like almost just as much as our class winner in terms of handling quality. Maybe not just the freshest in terms of hide, but I think that sheep is really hard and expressive in rack and loin. That sheep's very round in terms of center body and good in terms of skeletal width. Maybe one that's just a little bit too frail on us in terms of foot and bone. Would like to see that sheep just stouter at the ground. Maybe hook his neck in just a little bit neater and tidier at the top of his shoulder as well. But definitely a sheep we cannot ignore from a power standpoint. Young man's weather that's going to come in third. I think 3 and 4 are very close. If you kind of evaluate those sheep from the hawk up, those are nice carcass sheep. I think sheep that are very round in terms of center body, still good in terms of handling quality. And where this one stays in third is the construction of his hip and hind leg is just a little bit better. He's just a little bit more square back in through his dock, a little bit wider in terms of pin set. I think if we put a more attractive and stouter set of pink legs on this sheep, I think he definitely makes the case to move up even higher. Young lady shoe that comes next, I think one that's definitely bold in terms of center body. There's still a lot of shape and a lot of width up high, but a sheep that is just a little bit more generic in terms of build of hip and hind leg, maybe just a little bit longer docked, and so kind of takes away from the aesthetically pleasing side of things, but a sheep that is really, really thin and tidy up through that neck and front end. Just needed a same story, stopping this one up at the ground, make her just a little bit neater and tidier through that hip and dock. Young lady's dark fiber weather that comes next. I think one that's got some extra stoutness, a feature at the surface. A sheep that's maybe just a little bit better in terms of dock, but one that's still a little round in the build to his hip and hind leg. A sheep that is just a little bit narrower constructed, a little bit plainer, more disappointing over his rack and loin shape. Just need to see him more robust and more powerful right there as well. Then the young weather that's going to round off, I think one that actually offers a little bit more width of loin, a little bit more width of rack shape than the blue fiber weather in front, but a sheep that's just really, really short in terms of the build to his hip, a little bit rounder there, a little bit longer docked, and so kind of just takes away from that first impression, but a sheep that I still appreciate from a total muscle and weight standpoint.
Results from Blackface Marketland Class number 3. First, Lily Hancock. Second, Avery Bowling. Third, Joshua Rainey. Fourth, Catherine Swinier. Fifth, Danny Koltiska. And sixth, Will Edwards. Entering the ring is Blackface Marketland Class number 4. Claire Broadbent, Paige Walden, Ian Petzold, Lynn West, Claire Broadbent, Lauren Sell, and Avery Bowling. Blackface Marketland Class number 5. Please make your way to the holding area. Claire Broadbent, Aubrey Welter, Natalie Brown, Ella Hiller, and Benjamin Wilhite.
I think a tremendously high quality trio of sheep to lead off the class with. All are just a little bit different in terms of type and kind, but I think the one that's just really, really unique in terms of the silhouette that this guy paints is the young lady's weather in the middle. I think that one is just incredibly wide constructed. That sheep is massive over his rib and loin and super, super fresh. Maybe not the longest bodied sheep out here. That's maybe something I could change about him, but then that means he maybe doesn't come to us quite as wide and a bold package is what that guy does, and one that's just incredibly attractive in motion as well. Young lady's weather that's going to come up second, I think a sheep that offers just a pinch more length of body maybe. I think a sheep that's just right there in terms of hip and hind leg construction, maybe not just quite as tuned in presentation-wise in terms of how those legs are clipped, but I think a weather that's still really, really good from an attractiveness standpoint, but maybe one that just gets a little bit too open at the base of his shoulder, really wants to splay those front two out, but I think a really, really close pair. The young lady brings us to you that I think is just really, really nice to be sitting in third place. I think one that maybe matches the type and kind of our class winner a little bit closer, just a little bit shorter body, incredibly opened up underneath and really, really powerful up high. Where this sheep gets put third today is in terms of the design to her hip and just being a little bit more dropped forward in terms of her breastplate. She's just not quite as out there in terms of her build and balance on the profile. Young lady's weather that comes next. I think a sheep that I still really appreciate from a carcass standpoint. The sheep is hard to the touch. There's definitely plenty of mass up high, and one that's still fairly bold in terms of center body. Maybe a sheep that's just a little bit coarser at the point of his shoulder, maybe just doesn't hook his neck in quite right into the top of it. Sheep that I would like to see come to us just a little bit more opened up in terms of chest floor, but the young lady's done a great job getting that one fed and finished at this point. Young lady with the U next, I think that's a sheep that still has some dimension and boldness to center body. A sheep that doesn't necessarily lack in terms of pin width and shape from right behind, but when you put your hands on her, then she is just a little bit more disappointing in terms of being a little bit plainer to the touch, and one that I would like to see hook up stronger behind her shoulders as well. Young man's weather that comes next, I think one that does kind of counter in terms of being just a little bit more descript in terms of top shape. A sheep that does hook up stronger behind his shoulders, but you get on either sides of the sheep and he is just a little bit narrower constructed, just a little bit shorter and rounder in terms of that hip. To widen that guy out a little bit more, then he definitely makes a case to move up. The young man's weather that's going to round off the class, I think a sheep that's definitely not shy in terms of dimension or body, one that's got some length on the side, but a sheep that's just a little bit narrower constructed. Definitely want to see more overall power, more muscle mass on the top side of the sheep to move up in the class, but a nice job to these exhibitors.
Results from Marketland class number 4. First, Wind West. Second, Claire Broadbent. Third, Claire Broadbent. Fourth, Paige Walden. Fifth, Avery Bowling. And sixth, Oren Sell. Entering the ring is Blackface Marketland class number 5. Claire Broadbent, Aubrey Welter, Natalie Brown, Ella Hiller, and Benjamin Wilhite. Marketland Class 6, please make your way to the holding area. Lily Hancock, Ryan Petzold, Joseph Rainey, Maisie Thomas, Catherine Swinier, and Harper Hancock.
depending on where your emphasis lies. I think the one that just brings to us the most complete package, sheep that's just the best balance, one that still offers a really good progression of width from front to rear, as the young lady's weather out back. I think that guy is really nice from a carcass standpoint. Just really wish we could give that one just a little bit more total substance of foot and bone at the ground, make it just a little bit more attractive from that standpoint. Now the young lady's weather up front definitely counters our class in that aspect. I do think the sheep meets the surface with a little extra stoutness of feature. I do think the sheep is just a little bit more attractive in terms of the I do think that sheep is just a little bit more attractive in terms of the build to his hind leg. That's a sheep that's maybe just a little bit piecey at times. Sheep that just wants to get up in his spine a little bit too much. If we could settle that guy down there, make him hook up just a little bit neater at the top side of his shoulder and into his breastplate a little bit better, then we definitely can switch the pair. Young lady's dark fiber weather that comes next, I think definitely pretty typical for a dark fiber. You put your hands on this one, he's the hardest and the leanest and the most expressive up high. Sheep that's still very round in terms of center body, but maybe one that I would like to see a little bit better in terms of progression of width from front to rear. He narrows just a pinch back into his pin set, and a sheep that gets just a little bit more drop forward in terms of breastplate. I definitely want to see lower body balance just a little bit nicer in that sheep, and then we can definitely move up after that. The young lady's weather that comes next and fourth, I think a sheep that still balances fairly nicely on the profile. That's a sheep that still has some dimension and boldness of rib cage. One that is fairly wide over his rack and loin, but I do just need to feel a little bit more expressiveness, a little bit more shapeliness of rack and loin, or just a little bit plainer to the touch there. And then the young man's weather that's going to round off the class, I think one that definitely might have just a notch more shape and expressiveness and touch to his rack and loin, but a sheep that's just a little bit plainer in terms of general look, a little bit longer docked and kind of goes off his balance from the side. We get this guy opened up a little bit more underneath and we can definitely move up as well.
Results from Blackface Market Lamb class number 5. First, Ella Hiller. Second, Claire Broadbent. Third, Aubrey Welter. Fourth, Natalie Brown. Fifth, Benjamin Wilhite. Entering the ring is Blackface Market Lamb class 6. Lily Hancock, Ryan Petzold, Joseph Rainey, Maisie Thomas, Catherine Swinier, and Harper Hancock. Blackface Market Lamb class number 7. Please make your way to the holding area. Amelia Zumberg, Melanie Brown, Tyson Zumberg, Harper Baltz, Natalie Brown, Marlis Johnson. Following the conclusion of our market sheep show, we will do Sheridan County bred and fed. So if you have a bred and fed sheep, please make sure you are thinking about that. I have a list that I'll call later, but just because you are not on the list does not mean you cannot show. Just a reminder for contestants, our consignment forms are in the white building to the north of the show ring. Please make sure you are getting those filled out as soon as possible. If there's nobody in there, they're a green sheet, and there is a box that says consignment forms in there that you can drop it off. You will need a parent or guardian signature as well as your own. And sheep contestants, we will be taking pictures for sale directly after the breeding sheep show. Please make sure that you are getting pictures. They have to be done.
Kira. Will you check the
I think a tremendous high quality pair of sheep up here at the top. Both are just a little bit different in terms of type and kind, but I think what really separates the two is just muscle. Expressiveness, freshness of shape, and total product as well. I think both are incredibly good from a structure and a balance and attractiveness standpoint. The one that just couples it a little bit more with a fresher shape, leaner condition, just more expressiveness as the young lady's weather up front. I think that sheep is just incredibly attractive in terms of total profile, and then you get your hands on him, and that's where I'm certainly really impressed by that sheep from a shapeliness standpoint. Now there's still some really cool pieces in terms of attractiveness and balance in the young lady's weather in second. I think that one is really stout in terms of feature at the ground. This young lady's done, she's put in the elbow grease and the hard work at home getting that leg well grown. So that thing balances really nice, really attractive and kind of pencil fronted. That sheep goes with some athleticism and flexibility, but you put your hands on him, and even though he's got a lot of width to him in terms of top shape, he's just plainer and softer to the touch. Just need to see that sheep a little bit more descriptive and shapely up high for that pair to get switched. Young man's you that comes next, I think one that definitely I like with an expressiveness and a shapeliness standpoint. Maybe not the widest in terms of rack shape and loin, but I think that one is still hard to the touch and really good from a composition standpoint. And I think one that definitely brings some extra stoutness and feature to the table than either of the sheep that follow him. The young lady's youth that's going to come next, I think probably has the width and the power advantage over the young man's you that we just talked. I think the sheep does offer more genuine skeletal width. It's still pretty bold in terms of center body, but a sheep that's just a little bit plainer to the touch up top. I do need to see that sheep just shapely, just a little bit more shapely, a little bit more expressive in terms of rack and loin. Maybe clean this guy up in terms of presentation, give him a little bit better first impression as well. Young lady's weather coming next. I think similar in terms of type and kind, similar in terms of skeletal width and power from behind, but a sheep that's just a little bit more off in terms of build. That sheep's more dropped out in terms of his chest floor, a little bit shorter and rounder out of his hip. Not quite as attractive in the set to his hind leg either, but a sheep that definitely doesn't lack in terms of total power. Young lady's weather coming next. I think one that I definitely like from a freshness, a hide standpoint. That sheep is really nice in that area, but a sheep that's just a little off in terms of balance and in terms of skeletal width. The sheep is kind of just wedged the wrong way in terms of lower body balance. Just a little bit too dropped out and mature in terms of breastplate. Even though the sheep has width of rack and loin, I think he really tapers back into his pin set. He just doesn't come with quite as much genuine skeletal width, but that young lady's done a nice job of getting that one really fresh to the touch. Young man's weather coming next. I think one that is similar in terms of type and kind, but definitely just gets outpowered in this class today. Just need to see this guy come with a little bit more punch and power from directly behind, and then I think we can start making some switches on up the class.
Results from Blackface Marketland class number 6. First, Lily Hancock. Second, Harper Hancock. Third, Joseph Rainey. 4th, Maisie Thomas. 5th, Maisie Thomas. And 6th, Catherine Swinier. Entering the ring is black-faced market lamb class number 7, Amelia Zumberg, Melanie Brown, Tyson Zumberg, Harper Bolts, Natalie Brown, and Marlis Johnson. Black-faced market lamb class number 8, please make your way to the holding area. Ian Petzold, Brian Petzold, Melanie Brown, and London Metford.
really one that just sorts itself to the top real easy. I think there's some give and take between these two weathers left out here, but the one that I'm just a little bit more comfortable with from a composition standpoint is the young lady's weather at the back of the line. I think the sheep is just more correct in terms of fat cover. I think the sheep has just more expressiveness and shapeliness there over his rack and loin. He's one that is maybe just a little bit more square in terms of hind leg and hip and pin set, but a sheep that I do really want to stouten up at the ground, maybe give just a shot more chest floor as well. Now the young lady's weather up front, I think that's one that can balance with a really, really nice look. When she gets that U part just like that, I think that sheep offers a really balanced and complete look. Maybe gets just a little bit round out of her hip a little bit, but then you really put your hands on that sheep, and that's where I'm just a little bit more disappointed. That sheep is just a little bit overdone in terms of fat. Need to kind of peel some back off of that thing and just really shaping that one up to really switch the top pair. The young lady's ewe that comes next is one that I do appreciate more from a carcass standpoint. A sheep that definitely is harder to the touch in terms of rack and loin. One that is definitely better in terms of back cover over his forerib. But a sheep that I do want to fix from a balance standpoint. The sheep is just a little bit piecier in terms of her rear third. I do want to see her hook up stronger right there in terms of her loin to hip and go just a little bit more square and level out of that dog. But I think that's a sheep that still offers a tremendous amount of stoutness feature at the ground. If we kind of clean those legs up, it gives her even more of an attractive look. Young man's weather coming next. I think a sheep that's definitely bold and dimensional in terms of center body. I think a sheep that is really, really stout in terms of feature at the ground. But you get on either end of the sheep, and his progression of width just isn't quite right. The sheep's just a little bit narrower in terms of chest floor and in terms of pin width than he is in terms of center body. That sheep, even though he's good from a composition standpoint up top, I just want to see more total width and power up high from that guy to move him up to the class as well. Young lady's weather coming next. I think a sheep that I definitely don't mind from a width standpoint. There's still plenty of power on the top side of the sheep. The one that really kind of tapers back into his pin set, it's just a little bit shorter and rounder hips. Maybe isn't quite as attractive in his look from the profile. Then the young man's weather that's going to round it off, I think one that maybe has just a pinch more stoutness, a feature, and hook and bone than the sheep we just talked. But one that is just a little bit more off in terms of his build, wants to get a little straighter there in his shoulder, up in his spine, and that's a sheep that we need to see just more total power and genuine rib shape in to move up in this class as well.
Results from Blackface Marketland Class number 7. First, Natalie Brown. Second, Melanie Brown. Third, Amelia Zumberg. Fourth, Marlis Johnson. Fifth, Harper Bolts. And sixth, Tyson Zumberg. Entering the ring is Blackface Marketland Class number 8. Ian Petzold, Ryan Petzold, Melanie Brown, and London Mefford. Following the conclusion of this class, we will pick an overall Blackface Marketland from class number 1, Finn Stalick, with reserve being Amy Peldo. Class 2, AC Stalick, with reserve being Ty Watkins. Class 3, Lily Hancock, with reserve being Avery Bowling. Class 4, Wynn West, reserve Claire Broadbent. Class 5, Ella Hiller, reserve Claire Broadbent. Class 6, Lily Hancock, reserve Harper Hancock. Class 7, Natalie Brown, reserve Melanie Brown. We will need both class winners and reserves at the holding area, please.
One of you Kiwi Showmen lose your pet Bugs Bunny around here? I think a nice pair of lambs to start the class with. The young lady's view up front is one that just kind of does so more handily for me. I think that's a sheep that's a little better from a composition standpoint. One that I really like in terms of freshness and handle. That sheep is really good in terms of upstanding rack shape, really wide and smooth over her loin. Maybe could be just a little bit more expressive and have a little more pop to that loin edge. But that's being pretty nitpicky on one. That's still really good to the touch. Maybe I'd like to make that sheep just a little bit more square out of the hip as well. That's definitely the best carcass sheep in this class. The young lady's wether that comes next, I think one that's definitely got some width of skeleton, definitely has some width and shape up high, but that sheep is a lot softer to the touch, definitely pushing kind of the edge in terms of a little too much fat cover, so we need to keep that guy just a little bit leaner, maybe make him just a little bit more smooth and refined in terms of his shoulder blade and chest floor, then I definitely think it gets closer. The young man's wether that comes next, I think one that's definitely better from a composition standpoint than the sheep in 2, but one that is just a little bit more stale to the touch as well. We can feel just a little bit more spine, a little bit more apex in terms of top shape in this guy, and a sheep that I would like to make just a little bit more square out behind, but one that does have some natural skeletal width and some boldness of rib cage to him. Just need to see that sheep come to us in a fresher package today. And then the young man's wether that's going to round off the class. One that probably comes back into a little wider pin set and carries a little bit more shape down low into a stifle. But that's a sheep that is just real piecey in terms of general build. That sheep does come back just a little bit narrower, a little bit rounder in terms of his hip, a little bit piecier up front. But I think a sheep that's still got some genuine width and boldness and rib cage. Just need to see this one come a little fresher to us as well.
Results from Blackface Marketland Class number 8. First, Melanie Brown. Second, London Mefford. Third, Ryan Petzel. Fourth, Ian Petzel. We will now choose your champion Blackface Marketland. From Class 1, Finn Stolick. From Class 2, AC Stolick. Class 3, Lily Hancock. Class 4, Wayne West. Class 5, Ella Hiller. Class 6, Lily Hancock. Class 7, Natalie Brown. And Class 8, Melanie Brown. Reserves from each of those classes, please be ready. Following the selection of our champion Blackface, we will pick an overall champion Market Lamb. So from our Whiteface From our whiteface division, we'll need AC Stolick and the reserve from the whiteface, Shay Balls. From our speckled face, our champion, Broden Buchanan, and our reserve, Finn Stolick.
Given how many we have out here, I won't go back through and talk each and every one of them, but there's a few that just really stick out in my mind that bring the extra pieces on top of already being really good from a carcass merit standpoint. I think that the front two sheep up here, I think, are both pretty similar in terms of type and kind. One maybe has just a little extra stoutness of feature. The other one has just a little extra expressiveness and freshness to the touch. But both aren't just quite perfect in terms of maybe chest floor. Both can maybe use tweaks in terms of handling expressiveness up front. Maybe one that needs just a little extra stoutness of feature. But I think two sheep that are very, very representative of some high quality livestock out here. Then we kind of get back to these three class winners, and we're kind of a little out of order, but the young lady in the teal, I think this is a sheep that is really, really unique in terms of the silhouette that Weather paints on the profile. That thing hooks his neck really neat and tidy at the top of his shoulder. He's still really youthful and good in terms of breastplate. I think that sheep's lower body balance is really, really good. And then you get on top of the sheep, and his boldness of center body reads exceptionally good. That one is really, really hard and lean and fresh to the touch. And that sheep is still really stout in terms of foot and bone. Maybe not just the most attractive and not quite perfect in terms of the set to his hock and hind leg, but it doesn't mean it's not functional and not still impressive from a stoutness standpoint either. The young lady in the red brings us a wether that's just a little bit maybe shorter put together, a little bit more compact and kind, but that allows the sheep to be incredibly opened up, really wide in terms of chest board, hip width, and the shape that sheep offers in terms of rack and loin is exceptionally good. This one is really fresh and hard to the touch. This sheep is almost perfect in terms of lower body balance. He's really set up good and youthful in terms of breastplate. I think that sheep is very attractive in terms of the build and use of his hock and hind leg. That's one that's pretty hard to poke a hole in. Then the young lady in the black brings us a ewe that I think once she gets that thing finally set up and looking the part, that one profiles exceptionally good. I think the sheep carries as much muscle and turn to that lower twist and lower leg as much as any to where it actually really benefits that sheep's lower body balance and silhouette on the profile. This one is really attractive and neat up through that front third. I think the sheep is really good in terms of his knee and the set to his front too. But when we get to the rear part of her skeleton, that sheep is maybe just not quite as attractive and not quite as heavy duty in terms of the build and set to that hock and hind leg. And a sheep that I think is still very fresh to the touch. Maybe not quite as extreme in terms of handling quality over her loin as what some others are out here. I think it gets really close between three of them, and there's still some excellent quality sheep out here. We'll take another look and then select your champion blackface.
Your champion black-faced market lamb goes to Win West out of Class 4. So we will need Claire Broadbent's reserve. Your reserve champion goes to Lily Hancock.
Lily, is that class 6? That's another class 6, right? Yes. Okay.
We will now choose your overall champion market lamb. We will need AC Stolick with his white face. The reserve from the white face division is Shea Baltz. We will need Broden Buchanan's champion speckled face and Finn Stolick's reserve speckled face. We will need Win West's champion black face and Lily Hancock's reserve black face. Entering the ring is our champion lead of Market Lambs. Our champion Whiteface is AC Stalik. Our champion Speckled is Broden Buchanan, and our champion Blackface is Win West. Following the selection of our champion market lamb, we will do the Sheridan County Braden Fed. We need Natalie Brown, Melanie Brown, Will Edwards, Danny Koltiska, Catherine Swinier, Aubrey Welter, Benjamin Wilhite, and any other lamb that was bred and fed in Sheridan County.
I think there's some tremendous quality representing some different breed characters out here. All kind of offer some different advantages in their own right. And we'll kind of just recap back over on the young lady's Whiteface, whether that comes out of that first division. I think a sheep that balances and profiles nice. I think that sheep's attractive in the build of his hip and hind leg. One that is really, really neat and attractive about that front third. But a sheep that kind of just given the breed character doesn't offer quite the extreme in terms of muscle shape, expressiveness in terms of rack and loin edge. So one that we kind of would like to change there and maybe just power up a little bit from up above. The young man Speckle that comes out of that division, I think a heavier weight sheep that I think is still really, really impressive from a carcass standpoint. A sheep that is really, really hard and smooth when you get your hands on him. That sheep is really just seamless in terms of how he transitions from rack to loin and back into his dock. That sheep is really on target from a condition, composition standpoint. And then you study that one at the ground, and I think there's still a tremendous amount of stoutness of feature, lots of foot and bone. That's a sheep that is getting just a little bit older, more mature in terms of his look. And so he's just not quite perfect in his breastplate and his lower body balance, but one that I really appreciate from a handling standpoint. Then we get back to the young lady's Blackface leather. That's one that we've talked a couple times. Just that one's really elite in terms of the silhouette he paints, in terms of skeletal quality and soundness in motion, and that one's pretty hard to forget once you put your hands on that sheep's top. That's one that just kind of sorts himself to the top amongst the rest. He'll be your champion market lamb today.
Your 2022 Sheridan County Fair champion market lamb goes to Win West. We will need Lily Hancock's reserve from the Blackface division. Your reserve champion market lamb goes to Lily Hancock. Entering the ring is Sheridan County bred and fed. We have Natalie Brown, Melanie Brown, Will Edwards, Danny Koltiska, Catherine Swinier, Aubrey Welter, and Benjamin Wilhite. Breeders represented in today's show are Wild Roots, Will Edwards, Lundy Lambs, and Benjamin Wilhite. Your champion, Sheridan County bred and fed, will receive $200 donated by Sheridan Seed. All of the lambs currently in the show ring are bred and fed in Sheridan County. That means that the owners, the breeders, live in the county, and then all the exhibitors live in the county. Following this, we will take a 15-minute break. So we are going to start promptly at 5 o'clock with our breeding sheep show.
It's always nice for these exhibitors to be able to stay close to home when selecting their market and breeding livestock for the next year and for the next county fair. There's a couple out here that I think are really good representations of some high quality livestock ones that fit together from a balance standpoint, ones that offer some soundness and structure. But there's one sheep that kind of combines that with a really good expressiveness of muscle, good from a carcass merit and composition standpoint, and one that's maybe just a little bit harder to put together than some of the others in here. Young lady right here with that black spotted wether's going to win.
Your champion, Sheridan County bred and fed, goes to Natalie Brown. The breeder is Wild Roots.
Welcome everyone to the Sheridan Media County Fair live streaming channel. I'm Liz Kincaid, and joining me today is Sheridan County 4-H Pocket Pet Superintendent Patty Elliott. Patty, thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely, thanks for having me.
You bet. So tell me a little bit about the Pocket Pet Project. Like, what kind of pets can we expect to see if we come to the show?
So pocket pets is a category that is very broad and basically covers all the little critters that don't really fit in other categories. So we're talking about rodents, reptiles, fish, birds that are not poultry, like parrots, and even insects and arachnids, things like that. So at the fair this year, we will have some rodents, hamsters, tortoise, some geckos, at least one bird. And so yeah, it should be a really diverse little crowd.
And you've had a couple of snakes in the past, right?
We have.
Okay.
I don't think we have any snakes this year, although we did have one kiddo that was trying really hard to convince her parents to let her get a tarantula. I don't think she succeeded though.
Okay, so this Pocket Pet Project, it's really an all-inclusive. It gets to include kids that, not the traditional 4-H, I live out of town, I have a steer, I have a goat, sheep, it gets to include kids who live in town, kids who have not the normal run-of-the-mill 4-H animal, which is so neat.
Yes, that's my favorite thing about it. It's really opening up 4-H to kids who don't have the opportunity to have those larger livestock animals, and it's a really good opportunity to show that 4-H is for everybody.
Well, and not every kid likes a dog. I don't mean that bad. I love dogs, but I mean, not every kid, you know, I mean, I had friends who had hamsters and guinea pigs, and they just loved them as much as I loved my dog. So it's really, what a fun project to get to do.
Absolutely, yeah. And you can live in an apartment and still be a part of 4-H because you're able to house a fish or a hamster or something that's much more compact and portable. A little more portable than a cow.
Yes. So as the superintendent, what are the things that you want the kids to get out of this project?
So first of all, like just to reiterate, that 4-H is for everybody is kind of the biggest piece of why the pocket pet piece is a real passion thing for me. Is I love that it opens 4-H up to all the kiddos that maybe wouldn't otherwise be able to. As far as the rest of it goes, the ability to learn about what it takes to care for an animal, learning about especially, you know, different types of more exotic animals, the responsibility of taking care of them, cost in taking care of them, and all of that. And it's really interesting to be able to see the kids come to the project meetings as well as to the fair and be able to talk about not only their input into caring for their animal, but to be able to tell us what they've learned about their animal. Just really fun.
Well, awesome. So if someone's watching and they have a kiddo that wants to get involved, or maybe you have an adult who would like to help volunteer, how do they go about doing that?
So I would say contact the extension office is always the first thing to do. Get in touch with the folks over there, or if you know a superintendent, ask them directly of, you know, what they can do to help. I think probably all the projects have different needs. Some have, you know, more intensive needs than others, but if you're not sure where to start, either talking to somebody that's already involved or getting in touch with the extension offices are the best place to start.
Great. Was there anything else you'd like to talk about with Pocket Pets today?
I don't think so, other than just come out and see us. It would be really good to have more exposure for the project and for kids to realize that there's a lot of opportunity. You can come and show your tortoise or your goldfish and be a part of this community.
Awesome. Well, great. Well, Patty, thank you so much for joining us today. And everybody, please stay tuned to the Sheridan Media County Fair live streaming channel for more streaming of the shows and interviews. Welcome, everyone, to the Sheridan Media County Fair live streaming channel. I'm Liz Kincaid, and joining me today is Clay Christensen, the John B. Kendrick FFA advisor. Clay, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. So for those people who are watching and may not know, can you tell us kind of an overview of FFA and maybe what's the difference between FFA and 4-H?
So FFA is a national youth organization. We have chapters in all 50 states, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands. There's about 700,000 members across the United States, and we're geared more for just high school age members, so 9 through 12, and we're starting to get a lot more junior high members, which would be 6 through 8.
Okay. I had Mr. Jim Bond, which that's an old FFA advisor. He was mine. He actually took me to state fair as an 8th grader, and I got to help out in the agronomy building and things like that. So it was a lot of fun to get that a little bit of experience before going into high school. So that's really great that they're starting with junior high.
Yeah, we actually have several chapters, and they're their own chapters separate from the high school chapters in the state starting now. That just passed a year or so ago.
Wow.
So hopefully someday maybe we'll have it here, but that's a work in progress.
Wow. Well, I've had the opportunity to talk to a lot of your FFA kids. Obviously, my niece being one, I got to spend a lot of time with them. Sheridan has a great group of kids.
We do.
We're so fortunate. What makes these kids so great? What makes them so special?
I think it's kind of a culture we have at Sheridan to begin with. We strive to be the best, and I think the kids that we recruit and we want to have in our classes want to be the best, whether that's at speaking events or CDE events, whatever it may be. And then, of course, on their SAE, which is Supervised Agriculture Experience, which is what you'll see here tonight. All these kids showing and selling that's their Supervised Agriculture Experience. And that leads them to different degrees in the program, and then hopefully onto an American degree at some point. But I think we recruit a caliber of kids that that just want to be their best, and that's what we get and what we keep around.
So I think it's important too that everybody knows that at FFA is kind of like 4-H. It's not just animals. There's a wide variety of things with FFA. Public speaking, what are some other things that FFA members can do?
Absolutely. We strive to make that really known to any of our kids in our classes, because they do have to take an ag class in order to be in FFA. And I would say we maybe have 10% of our kids that are actually on the ranch or on the farm or raising livestock. The rest of them, live in town, but still want to get a leadership type experience out of high school. And that's really what we promote. So our CDEs, which is career development event, and leadership development events, focus on agriculture as a whole, but anybody could gain experiences from those. So we have things like livestock judging, horse evaluation, meats evaluation. We do environment, natural resources, ag sales, ag mechanics, and then our speaking events as well. And so any student that's in an ag class that wants to gain leadership and wants to be more career ready when they leave high school can really gain some opportunities from FFA.
Well, I can say, speaking from experience, FFA really helped me with my public speaking presence, being able to stand up and talk to people, not have that fear of talking to a crowd or even a camera like we are today. So
absolutely, and we get that from a lot of other teachers in the high school, especially in the English side of things, that a lot of our FFA members are a step above some of our other students in the high school, just because they have so much more experience with the public speaking and the decision making that we make them go through.
Who would have thought that music and FFA went together, but Nick Siddle was my ag teacher after Mr. Bond retired. And when I would give reasons and stuff, he said my years of music really helped me to learn to phrase and how to take breaths and stuff. And who would have ever thought those two would have went together, but they did. And absolutely. It was a big compliment for me that he was able to do that. So I think people need to realize it doesn't have to just be about ag. It can be so many broad things.
That's right.
So if somebody wants to join FFA, obviously they have to be in school, but how do they do that?
So we are actually an affiliated chapter, and what that means is any kid that takes one of the ag classes at the high school, so we have a wide variety of animal science classes, and then we also teach all of the welding classes, and it's called ag welding. So that's considered an ag class, and any of those classes, as long as a student is enrolled in one of those, they are actually an FFA member. Now we leave it up to them how much they choose to be involved. But if they're in an ag class and they want to be involved, it's come to meetings and come to the different activities and things that we do. And then usually about the start of the year, after we get back from Christmas break, is when we start all of our CDs and LDs and those types of things. And they would sign up and come to practices.
Oh, great. Well, anything else you want to touch on today with FFA or
No,
fair?
FFA has been a major part of my life, and I hope that we're passing that along to kids. And those kids, from what I can see, I've had a lot of former students come tell me that it was one of the best things that they've ever done. And even some kids recently that joined a little later on in their career really wish they'd done it before. So if you have any inclination about joining, you should definitely do it. And as far as fair goes, thanks everybody for the support for our kids. This is one of the greatest things that kids can do. It's so much for their growth and responsibilities later on in life. And I owe everything that I've done in my life to County Fair and FFA. So.
We are lucky. We have an amazing community that is so supportive of 4-H and FFA and our sale that we have. They're a great supporter of the kids. So we're very fortunate. All right. Well, thanks, Clay, for coming in today. We appreciate it. And stay tuned. Keep watching for more shows and more fair updates. Welcome, everyone, to the Sheridan Media County Fair live streaming channel. I'm Liz Kincaid, and joining us today is Sheridan County Poultry Superintendent Jennifer Forsness. Jennifer, thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about the poultry project. What does it consist of? A little overview.
Well, in the poultry project, you can have chickens, ducks, geese, or turkeys. And this year, we're going to be a little bit different. So we aren't having any live animals at our fair this year. So for the poultry project only.
And that's due to the avian flu that's going around. The state of Wyoming has chose it won't be at any fairs or state fair, am I correct?
Actually, I believe it is, but there is a lot of hoops to jump through to get that to work. And there's so many rules and regulations on it, I just don't think it's fair.
Well, and I know the decision was made early on that there was some a lot of contamination throughout the state. So our county went ahead and made that choice so that the kids didn't have the expense out this year. And then for some reason, they weren't able to. But you've still been having meetings and get-togethers for the kids to still learn about their project, even though they don't have live birds this year.
Exactly. And I mean, there's so much more to a project than just the animal. They need to know about the animals. And this year we're doing a skill-a-thon. So the kids are going to tell us all about their turkeys, their ducks, their chickens. We're going to have them each produce a board so that they can show us about their project. And we're going to have them do a little virtual showmanship sent to us via their folks' text message, I hope.
Well, awesome. Yeah, there is so much. I mean, even if you you're not going to show this year, you still have your chickens. I know a lot of the kids, their families probably have them on their property. There's still the feeding, the care, the water, the knowing if they're sick and being able to identify that. And that's so important to still learn how to do all that, even if you don't have the project to show this year.
Exactly. And it's hard to not have the animals. I'm having a hard time with that, but to keep everybody safe, we're doing what we have to do.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, it's a new age of things now. So as the superintendent, what kind of things do you like the kids to get out of this project? What do you like to see them do?
I particularly like them being able to speak in public. 4-H 100% teaches them it's not scary to talk to somebody interviewing you. And they learn how to just impromptu speech. That's something that is kind of a lost art anymore, I believe.
Oh, absolutely. And I learned through 4-H and FFA myself.
Intermediate breeding sheep showmanship, Oren Sell. We will follow that up with junior breeding sheep showmanship, Aubrey Welter, Lennon Mefford, and Benjamin Willite. Amber Jensen, we need you up here.
competition out here. I think doing a really nice job of getting that sheep parked and looking the part. I think gets that sheep set up pretty quick, but does want to kind of jump around on us when we're trying to brace, and so that's just a little nitpicky deal that we can fix at home in terms of just getting that thing dialed in and being just a little bit more automatic and wanting to cooperate just a little bit more for us. But intense, eye contact's awesome. I think you do a really, really nice job out here. Just get that thing dialed in, and when we go to brace, we'll be set.
Your champion intermediate breeding sheep showman goes to Orange Cell. Entering the ring will be junior breeding sheep showman Aubrey Welter and London Mefford. Following this class, we will have our Dorset winner, Ulan, born 1/1/2022 to 2/15/2022, with Natalie Brown and Aubrey Welter.
I think two young ladies that are doing an outstanding job out here getting these two youths stuck. I think both are really, really good in terms of how they lead those sheep into it, get them parked, and then get them set up in a pretty timely fashion. A couple times the sheep just want to kind of wiggle around on them a little bit more, but I think what really separates these two, it's just a little bit in terms of showing style. Not that we absolutely have to brace the sheep during a breeding show, but during showmanship, that's still kind of what I like to see. I like to see that showman get just a little bit more in front, put that knee into that sheep's chest, and be just a little bit more tidy in terms of our stance. It definitely helps with a little bit more professionalism, but I think the one that's just a little bit more intense and definitely falls suit into my showing style is the young lady in the blue up there. She'll be a champion junior. Take away from you, I think you still get that sheep parked and set really, really well. I think we just kind of need to switch up that showing style for me, get just a little bit more in front of that sheep. We can keep our stance just a little bit closer together, makes us seem just a little bit more poised and professional. It also helps you maintain just a little bit more control of that sheep, but keep up the good work at home. We're getting that thing stuck, and we're intense, eye contact straight, just kind of change up the showing style for me. Good job, you lady.
Your champion junior breeding sheep showman goes to Aubrey Welter, reserved to London Mefford. Entering the ring now will be our Dorset winner, Ulan, with Natalie Brown and Aubrey Welter. Following this class, we will have our Hampshire winner, Ulan, London Mefford.
I think a really nice pair of ewes out here, but it's the young lady's older, larger frame ewe that's going to win pretty handily for me today. I think this one actually balances really, really good from the profile. This one's fairly decent in terms of lower body balance, but I think one that's still attractive about that front third, pretty square and level there out of her hip. You get in behind the sheep, and I still think she's really good in terms of progression of width from front to rear. I think there's some excellent breeding pieces here and a very, very solid foundation for that young lady to play off of down the road and go a lot of different routes in terms of getting that one settled to new and upcoming bucks. Then the young lady's smaller, younger ewe up front. I think one that's really, really long and attractive up through that front third. Maybe she could tie her neck in just a little bit better at the top side of her shoulder. I would like to see this ewe just a little bit cleaner, a little bit more tucked up in terms of her breastplate, but that ewe's good in terms of the set to her hip and hind leg. And I still think, even relative to frame size, that ewe's still got plenty of power and width to her. I think still another really nice foundation for an excellent breeding project for that young lady.
Your champion Dorset winner ewe lamb goes to Natalie Brown. Reserved to Aubrey Welter. Entering the ring will be our Hampshire winner ewe lamb, London Mefford. We will then have our any other wool breed spring ram lamb, Michael Wasikowski.
The young lady brings us a really nice ewe that offers some cool pieces in terms of generating weathers on down the road. This one's really opened up underneath and square. I think there's a lot of boldness and genuine shape to center body in this ewe and a lot of power up high. Maybe we could change some things from a build standpoint in terms of the angle to her shoulder being just a little bit more dropped out in terms of her chest floor, and one that I'd like to make just a notch more square and level out of her hip, but definitely a lot of power and a lot of genuine width can be found in this one.
Your champion Hampshire winner ewe lamb goes to London Mefford. Entering the ring will be our any other wool breed spring ram lamb, Michael Wasikowski. Following that, we will have our any other wool breed winner ewe lamb, Melanie Brown.
Brings us a pretty nice young ram out here. I think one that maybe is a little different given the breed character in terms of stoutness and feature at the brown. But I think that's a sheep that still offers a lot of genuine width. The skeleton, that guy is really bold and dense in terms of center body dimension. And this ram is not shy in terms of power and total muscle either. I think there's a lot of good in this sheep from that aspect. And I think one that still runs fairly uphill in terms of front end and offers a pretty good look from the profile. I think that'll be a pretty cool breeding piece to put into an operation and help grow some genetics out.
Your champion, any other wool breed spring ram lamb, goes to Michael Wasatowski. Entering the ring will be any other wool breed winner ewe lamb Melanie Brown. We will then have our any other wool breed spring ewe lamb Abigail Wasatowski, Emily Wasatowski, and Michael Wasatowski.
I think the young lady brings us a pretty high quality South down as a single entry. A sheep that's definitely fairly dense in terms of foot and bone work. A sheep that's definitely got a lot of width, a skeleton, really, really good power. I think the progression of width from front to rear in the sheep is really nice. I think a sheep that is still good in terms of flexibility, one that's just pretty hard to pick a major hole in. I think that's going to be a really, really valuable breeding piece for this young lady's operation.
Your champion and any other wool breed winner ewe lamb goes to Melanie Brown. Entering the ring will be any other wool breed spring ewe lamb Abigail Wasatowski, Emily Wasatowski, and Michael Wasatowski. We will then choose a champion any other wool breed ewe lamb. So we'll need Melanie Brown back and the winner of this class as well.
First couple. It was like that one in London. So King Emperor, you and those should be a good one. Oh, breed. Sorry, breed. Dorset, Ham, other wool. So we're doing other wool right now. Right, any other.
Austin, you have one more coming.
Any other wool. Michael, Melanie, and then come back. That's only the 2 of you. Melissa.
Just keep your first and second.
Okay.
And then we'll bring in the other one.
I think we'll start with the young ladies, you up front. I think one that just balances with the most quality on the profile. I think that's you that still offers a little bit more length the front end, a little bit more attractiveness in terms of the shape of her head and neck. I think that one's still really good in terms of lower body balance. Good in terms of dimension of center body. Maybe not the most powerful one out here, but I do think that's one that has plenty of skeletal width to her and one that I appreciate more from a balance standpoint. Now the young lady there in the middle of the lineup is going to go ahead and be second. I think that one just does come with just a little bit more stoutness, a little bit more with the skeleton from behind, but that one isn't quite as good in terms of lower body balance. Maybe could be just a little bit deeper in terms of rear rib and flank, and she doesn't hook up her neck into the top side of her shoulder quite as attractive as our class winner. Then the young man's you that's going to round it off. I think one that maybe just kind of falls out a little bit more in terms of weight per day of age, maybe comes to us in just a little bit narrower of a package, but I do think that one it does still offer a balanced look on the profile and does still hook in a little bit smoother through the point of her shoulder, but I think all three are very, very similar in terms of type and kind, and you can probably go a few different ways given a person's emphasis, and I wouldn't argue with you too much. I think three really nice breeding projects.
Your champion, any other wool breed spring ewe lamb, goes to Abigail Wasatowski. Reserved to Emily Wasatowski. Third, Michael Wasatowski. We will now pick an any other wool breed champion ewe lamb. So from our winter ewe lamb, we'll have Melanie Brown, and our spring ewe lamb, we'll have Abigail Wasatowski.
Your champion, any other one.
Obviously have some differences in terms of breed character and breed type out here, but I still think there's quality in both livestock. We talked to the young ladies, kind of smaller, dark fibered ewe, one that I think still balances from the profile with a nice look, still offers a lot of length and attractiveness up to that front end. It's still good in terms of lower body balance. Maybe just doesn't quite stack up the same in terms of total performance, total stoutness of structure and power from behind. The young ladies, South Down ewe, I think that's one that just paints an awfully nice picture on the profile. That's one that's pretty hard to poke a hole in from any aspect, and one that I still really appreciate from a total width and stoutness at the ground standpoint. I think that one just does a lot of things pretty nice for me. She'll be your champion any other role. With that just being a single entry out of that one, I think it's still a really nice place to follow up with this young lady's ewe. One that's still good from a look standpoint. Nice place to be reserved.
Your champion, any other wool breed, goes to Melanie Brown, reserved to Abigail Wasatowski. We will now have our any other meat breed, Melanie Brown. That's a spring ram lamb.
Dark fiber grand lamb. I think one that's really good from a skeletal width standpoint. Still really good in terms of boldness to center body and rib cage. I think there's plenty of power in that guy. Maybe would like to change him in terms of balance from the profile, in terms of how he hooks in his neck to the top of his shoulder and then transitions back into his rack and loin. We could make him just a little bit smoother there. But I think one that's got a lot of flexibility in motion, definitely pretty good from a stoutness of feature standpoint.
Your champion, any other meat breed, spring ram lamb, goes to Melanie Brown. Entering the ring will be any other meat breed ewe, 1 year old and under 2, Natalie Brown and Melanie Brown. Following that, we will have any other meat breed winner ewe lamb, Harper Baltz.
two really nice ewes that are fairly similar in terms of type and kind and the silhouette that they paint in the profile. There's one that's maybe just maxed out a little bit more in terms of power and width. Maybe comes to us with just a little bit more chest width, one that balances a little bit more better as the young lady's lighter colored ewe. I think that one just offers a pinch more stoutness underneath. That one's just a little bit more massive in terms of center body and doesn't fall short in terms of power at all. Maybe the dark fibered ewe comes with a lot more stoutness feature. It is a little bit more attractive in terms of the set to her hock and hind leg. But this is a ewe that does narrow up just a little bit more in her chest floor. One might say that she's really good in terms of progression of width because she does kind of narrow up there and then comes back into a really wide and powerful pin set. But that one does kind of need to hook up just a little bit stronger and smoother in terms of her loin to dog junction. But I think two sheep that are very similar, both offer a tremendous amount of power and breeding potential.
Your champion, any other meat breed, you 1 year old and under 2, goes to Melanie Brown, reserved to Natalie Brown. Entering the ring will be any other meat breed, winner, ewe, lamb, Harper Vaults. We will then select a champion, any other meat breed, so we'll need Melanie Brown back and the winner of this class.
I think a really nice single entry the young lady brings us, one that balances incredibly well on the profile. I think that one's long and attractive about her front third and ties it in really nice at the top of her shoulder. Lower body balance is actually really good in this sheep. And then I think you get behind her and there's definitely plenty of genuine width and squareness. Where we can change the sheep is maybe in motion. I would like to see her go just a little bit more flexible. Offer just a little bit more reach off of both ends as well, but on the standstill, that's one that we definitely like quite a bit.
Your champion, any other meat breed, just stay in the ring. Your champion, any other meat breed, winner, ewe, lamb, goes to Harper Vaults. We'll now pick a champion, any other meat breed, ewe. So we'll have Melanie Brown at Harper Vaults. Natalie Brown will need your reserve on standby. Following this class, we'll have our commercial crossbred weather type spring ewe lamb or a cell with 2 entries.
Come from vastly different breed types and backgrounds. I think both offer a lot of good in their own ways. Kind of start off, we just finished up with the young ladies view up front, one that we thought just balances incredibly well, really hard to poke a hole in when on a standstill, set that U in motion, and maybe just want to see her reach and flex just a little bit more, but one that definitely doesn't shy up in terms of power, genuine width, and center body shape. Now the young lady's black-faced U, I think one that if you get in right behind the sheep and you just compare them apples to apples, the sheep is definitely the more powerful option. The one that's just a little bit more massive and robust in terms of center body, but maybe one that isn't quite as attractive in the build to her hocking hind leg. There's Bugs Bunny again. But I think one that we like to see just a little bit more stoutness of feature, a little bit more attractiveness of hind leg there. I think the one that brings just a few more unique pieces to the table is going to be the young lady's lightest pellet U.
Your champion, any other meat breed, goes to Melanie Brown. Reserved to Harper Bolts. We will now have our commercial crossbred weather type spring ewe lamb, Oren Cell, with 2 entries. Following the conclusion of this, we will pick an overall ewe lamb. So from our Dorsets, we need Natalie Brown. From our Hams, we need London Mefford. Our any other wool, we need Melanie Brown. And the reserve, Abigail Wasatowski. Our any other meat, we need Melanie Brown. And reserve, Harper Bolts. And our cross. Well, I think the young lady's U is one that just paints a little better profile for me. That's one that I like just a little bit better in terms of lower body balance. That one offers a little bit more depth of flank. And then you study this one's hip shape. She definitely comes just a little bit more square there through her dock. I do think there is just a little bit more total muscle, and she does carry shape a little deeper into her twist. Maybe some things I do like about the young man's U is length and attractiveness up front third. That sheep does offer a lot more length up there. Maybe ties that neck on just a little bit higher and neater at the top side of her shoulder. But that's one that maybe just doesn't balance up quite as much when you study her rear third. She wants to cut up into her flank just a little bit more. Maybe get a little bit shorter in terms of her hip, a little bit rounder there as well. But I think two that are very similar in terms of type and kind and still offer a lot of good functional and soundness standpoint too. Your champion commercial crossbred weather type spring ewe lamb goes to Oren Cell. Reserved to Oren Cell. Entering the ring will be our champion overall ewe. So we'll have our Dorset with Natalie Brown, our Hamp with London Mefford, any other wool, Melanie Brown, any other meat, Melanie Brown, and our crossbred Oren Cell. The reserve, From Any Other Wool, Abigail Wasatowski will need yours on standby. Any Other Meat, Harper Balks Reserve will need you on standby. And Orange Cell Reserve from Crossbred will need you on standby. Following the selection of our overall ewe, we will have our overall ram. So Any Other Wool will be Michael Wasatowski, and Any Other Meat will be Melanie Brown.
Harper, is that your win?
Let's see, all right, we have Melanie, London, Natalie, Aubrey, and that's probably Melanie's land. No, that's Orange land. Orange land, sorry, Orange land. Orange
So
land.
we need Natalie Brown, Dorset. We need London Medford's Camp. We need Melanie Brown's Any Other Wool Breeds. We need Melanie Brown's Any Other Meat Breed. And then we need Orange Cell's Crossbred. Is that what we have?
Yeah. Yeah, they're just. Oh, you think?
As we get out into this little championship drive, I think a lot of differences in terms of type and kind, but a lot of quality and some different things that a guy can go with depending on where he places his emphasis. For me, it kind of boils down between two out here that are just a little bit more higher quality, more elite in terms of their look from the profile. Ones that still offer a lot of flexibility and soundness, but definitely don't give up any with the skeleton and any power when you get behind them. The two that are kind of sitting in my mind is the young ladies south down up front. I think that's one that we talked is pretty hard to just poke a major hole in. one that I definitely like from a density and a power standpoint when we get right behind. Then the young lady's ewe that's third in line, I think that one is just really, really attractive from the profile. That one paints a really, really nice picture. Maybe could be just a little bit longer and neater up through that head and neck, but that one is definitely really wide constructed and loaded up with power. I think you can go either way on those two. The one that's just a little bit more unique in terms of her look is going to be the young lady's darker face ewe for me.
Melanie. Is that your any other meat?
Natalie.
Come on, we need to pick a reserve.
What? That's Melanie's sheep, right? This is mine. That's yours.
Can we pick a reserve?
Melanie go first. Melanie go first.
Your champion overall ewe goes to Melanie Brown. We will now have our overall ram, so we will need any other wool, Michael Wasatowski, and any other meat, Melanie Brown.
That's
Speckled
Natalie.
face? Was it the speckled face? Yeah, that was Natalie.
Okay, sorry, I had it wrote down.
Okay, okay.
Sorry, your champion overall ewe goes to Natalie Brown.
Reserve this. White. So that one is Melanie's. They just reversed the names. Same family. There should be two of them.
Well, I'm not sure we could get any more different in terms of type and kind, in terms of breeding purpose that both of these bring. Both are very, very different in terms of stoutness of feature, definitely frame and growth and performance. There's one that's just a little bit more my kind in terms of offering some extra stoutness at the ground, offering some extra natural skeletal width. One that's just a little bit better in terms of center body. Maybe the sheep could be a little bit better in terms of how his neck hooks into his shoulder. And so that's something that I'll definitely give credit to the young man's ram for. But the one that's just, I think, offers a little bit more potential to generate some higher quality stock in the future is going to be that young lady's dark fiber ram.
Your champion overall ram goes to Melanie Brown, reserved to Michael Wasikowski. Your